Michael was 14 years old when he learned for the first time that the world only seemed solid from a distance. Until then, his life followed a simple, almost predictable rhythm. He woke up early, had breakfast in silence while his father read the newspaper at the kitchen table, and left for school with the quiet sense that someone was always there. It was not a loud presence, nor an overly affectionate one. It was firm, constant, enough. Michael's father was not a man of grand speeches. He spoke little, but every word seemed to carry weight. He worked long hours, came home tired, and still found time to ask about his son's day, not out of obligation, but out of genuine interest. Michael grew up believing that this was normal, that everyone had someone like that the world operated within certain clear boundaries. On weekends, they walked together through the neighborhood streets. His father explained simple things: how to fix a door, how to observe people without judging them too quickly, how to remain calm even when something seemed unfair. Michael listened more than he spoke. At that age, he did not yet understand the value of those lessons. He simply stored them away, as one stores something that does not seem immediately useful. There was a quiet sense of protection in Michael's life, not because nothing bad could happen, but because, if it did, someone would know what to do. That belief shaped his days, his thoughts, and even the way he viewed the future. He did not think far ahead. He did not need to. At school, Michael was discreet. He did not stand out, but he did not go unnoticed either. He was respected by his classmates and seen by his teachers as someone grounded, perhaps even too mature for his age. Part of this came from his father's influence, a kind of invisible compass that kept him aligned, even without realizing it. At that stage of his life, Michael believed that certain things were unbreakable: authority, order, the idea that right and wrong were clearly defined. He trusted institutions, adults, and rules. He had never been taught to be suspicious. On that particular night, an ordinary night with no sign of what was to come, Michael went to sleep thinking about trivial things: a test at school, an assignment he needed to turn in, a weekend that was approaching. Nothing suggested that this routine was about to break. Nothing suggested that in a short time he would be forced to grow not by choice, but by necessity. And above all, nothing suggested that the man who gave him stability would be taken from him not by chance, but by an unjust decision coming from exactly where Michael least expected it. The fall had not yet begun, but the ground was already about to disappear.
Michael's father's name was Thomas. To the world, Thomas was just another ordinary man. He worked for a public institution, followed rules, respected schedules, and believed, perhaps naively, that doing his duty was enough to ensure a righteous life. To Michael, however, Thomas was far more than a father. He was the invisible axis around which everything revolved. Thomas had a calm way of existing. He did not raise his voice easily, did not make grand promises, and never placed himself above others. He taught by example, and because of that, when his words came, they were definitive. Michael grew up observing that quiet conduct and internalizing, without realizing it, a very clear notion of justice. There were simple rituals between the two of them. Thomas helped Michael with the most difficult homework, even when he came home tired from work. He would sit beside him at the table, explain things patiently, and when his son made a mistake, he showed no irritation. He would simply tell him to try again. That posture shaped the way Michael dealt with errors, not as final failures, but as stages. In the late afternoons, they walked together. Thomas spoke about his work carefully, never revealing too many details, but allowing something important to slip through. He believed in the system. He believed that authorities existed to protect, not to oppress, that rules were meant to organize, not to harm. Michael listened to everything with attention and absolute trust. There were also moments of silence, long ones, comfortable ones. Michael felt that he did not need to fill every space with words. His father's presence was enough. Thomas had the rare gift of making an environment feel safe simply by being there. At that time, Michael did not yet know how to name it, but he already depended deeply on his father. Thomas was the one who emotionally balanced the household, the one who resolved conflicts, the one who brought rationality when something went off course. The family functioned because Thomas supported more than bills and schedules. He supported stability. On a specific night, not long before everything changed, Thomas entered Michael's room and sat on the edge of the bed. They talked about the future. Nothing concrete, just possibilities. Thomas said that the world would not always be fair, but that Michael should choose whenever he could to act correctly. He did not speak of sacrifice. He did not speak of loss. He spoke of character. Michael did not know that night that those words would become a turning point. He heard them with the naturalness of someone who believes he will have infinite time to hear many more. At that stage of his life, Michael felt protected because he trusted not only his father, but everything he represented: order, justice, predictability. The idea that an authority could fail in an irreparable way had never crossed his mind. Thomas was living proof that the system worked. And that was exactly why the loss that was approaching would not be merely personal. It would destroy, all at once, the father and a 14-year-old boy's belief in the world.
The first signs did not come as clear warnings. They came disguised as routine, small details that seemed far too ordinary to raise suspicion. Thomas began coming home later. He did not complain, nor did he explain much. He simply said that administrative matters were being reviewed at work, decisions coming from above that had to be carried out without question. Michael noticed the change but did not fully understand it. At 14, he still believed that adults always knew what they were doing. There was a different kind of fatigue in Thomas. It was not physical. It was a silent weight, something that settled into his gaze when he thought he was alone. Even so, he maintained his usual posture, organized, proper, respectful. He continued to believe that acting the right way was enough to get through any situation. On one particular afternoon, Michael overheard a conversation that was not meant for him. Thomas was speaking on the phone, his voice low but firm. He mentioned contradictory orders, procedures that went against everything he had learned his entire life. He did not sound angry, he sounded concerned. That moment stayed etched in Michael's mind, though he did not yet know why. In the days that followed, small changes began to accumulate. Thomas started reviewing documents at home. He read and reread papers, as if searching for something he could not find. At one point, he commented to Michael that not every authority acts with justice, but that this did not justify abandoning one's own principles. It was the first time he planted a doubt, however discreetly. Michael felt a sense of unease growing. It was not fear exactly. It was the feeling that something important was shifting, moving out of place. The house remained the same, the schedules too, but the atmosphere had changed. The silence, once comforting, began to carry tension. On an ordinary morning, Thomas left the house earlier than usual. He wore the same coat as always, adjusted the watch on his wrist, and said goodbye with a simple gesture. Michael did not give it much thought. There was no reason to. That was the last ordinary gesture between the two of them. Throughout the day, Michael tried to push away the strange feeling that followed him. He attended classes, talked with classmates, laughed in isolated moments. Still, something remained lodged deep in his chest, a sense of intuition he could not name. When the day ended and Thomas did not return at the usual time, unease turned into waiting, then into silence, then into concern. Nothing had happened yet, but the world was slowly beginning to move toward a point of no return. And Michael, without knowing it, was about to lose not only his father, but the certainty that what is right always prevails. Thomas did not return home that night. At first, no one panicked. The family assumed a delay, a prolonged meeting, some bureaucratic complication. Thomas usually informed them when he could, but there were also days when work kept him beyond his normal hours. Still, as the hours passed, the silence began to weigh heavily. Michael watched the door with excessive attention, as if staring at it could somehow bring his father back. With every sound from the street, his body reacted, but the door remained closed. It was only the following morning that reality began to assert itself. A brief phone call, a voice that was far too formal, few explanations. They were asked to report to a public building. No details, no preparation. The place was cold, impersonal. Long corridors, colorless walls, people who avoided eye contact. For the first time, Michael felt a deep discomfort in a space that was supposed to represent order and safety. Something there was wrong. That was where they heard the words that would change everything. Thomas had been detained during an operation conducted by a higher authority, accused of disobedience, of insubordination, of putting internal procedures at risk. Nothing had been clearly explained to him, no rights fully guaranteed, no real opportunity for defense. Hours later, Thomas was dead. The official version was simple, almost too convenient. An incident during custody, an regrettable error, an isolated case. The words were carefully chosen to sound technical, neutral, distant from the pain they caused. Michael listened to everything in silence. He did not cry, he did not scream, he did not ask questions. The world had shifted so abruptly that his body seemed incapable of reacting. He looked at the adults around him and noticed something he had never seen before. No one seemed truly willing to seek the truth. The authority his father had always respected now spoke in reports, protocols, and the rapid closure of the case. The injustice did not come only from Thomas's death, but the way it was handled, as something to be resolved, not understood. In the days that followed, the house filled with people, and at the same time became empty. Mechanical condolences, ready-made phrases, awkward silences. Michael moved through it all like a stranger, trying to understand how the world could continue to function normally. At some point, the pain turned into something else. Anger. Not an explosive anger, but a deep, silent, focused one. Michael began to connect the dots, even if only in a confused way. His father had questioned unjust orders. He had believed in what was right, and for that he had been punished and silenced. The authority that's supposed to protect had failed. Worse than that, it had caused the harm. In that moment, something broke inside Michael. It was not only the loss of his father, it was the loss of the belief that acting correctly was enough to remain safe. Injustice was no longer abstract. It had a face, it had power, it had irreversible consequences. And for the first time, Michael felt a thought take root inside him, a thought that would follow him for many years to come. someone would have to pay for what had happened. Thomas's funeral took place a few days later, but for Michael, time had already lost any real meaning. The days blended together. The hours passed without clear markers. He remembered faces, voices, hands that touched him with excessive care, as if he were too fragile to exist normally. He remained silent throughout the entire ceremony. He watched the closed coffin, trying to understand how someone so present could now fit into such a limited space. That simple realization struck them with force. Nothing would ever be the same again. After the funeral, the house became unfamiliar. Thomas's belongings remained in the same places, but they seemed out of context, as if they belonged to another life. The coat hanging by the door, the watch forgotten on the table, the carefully folded newspaper. Everything that once represented security now served as a constant reminder of absence. Michael began to withdraw. He answered in monosyllables. He avoided long conversations. He spent more time alone in his room, staring at the ceiling, reliving moments that now felt painfully distant. Grief did not appear as frequent tears, but as a gradual hardening. At school, teachers tried to show understanding. Classmates spoke carefully, some with barely concealed curiosity. Michael noticed the looks, the whispers, the questions no one dared to ask. He felt exposed, as if his pain had become public property. Little by little, anger began to occupy the space left by sadness. It was not an uncontrolled emotion, but a constant one. It fed on repetitive thoughts, unanswered questions, and an injustice that seemed to have been accepted far too quickly. Michael no longer trusted adults in the same way. Institutions that once seemed solid now felt distant and indifferent. He watched official speeches on television and felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The authority that had taken his father was still there, intact, as if nothing had happened. Within him, a simple and dangerous idea began to form. If the system would not deliver justice, someone would have to. But Michael was still 14 years old. He had no means, no direction, only accumulated emotions with nowhere to put them. That sense of powerlessness deepened his frustration, pushing him further into isolation. It was during this period that he also began to distance himself from the few people who tried to get close, not out of contempt, but out of fear. Fear of growing attached again, fear of losing someone else. Silence became his refuge, and at the same time, his prison. The pain did not lessen, it merely changed shape. And as Michael closed himself off from the world, the quiet anger growing inside him began, without his realizing it, to shape the man he would one day become. It was Professor Daniel Harris who noticed first. Daniel had been teaching literature at Michael's school for several years. He was not a teacher who drew attention through his tone of voice or extravagant methods. His presence was discreet but attentive. He observed more than he spoke, and perhaps for that very reason he noticed what others interpreted merely as normal grief. Michael had changed, not only in his behavior, but in the way he occupied space. Once participative when prompted, he now avoided any kind of interaction. His assignments remained correct, but empty. His essays had lost color, emotion, perspective. They were technically sound, but emotionally absent. Daniel did not confront him immediately. He waited. He believed that some forms of pain needed time before they could be touched. Even so, he followed Michael closely, with the care of someone who knows that prolonged silence can be dangerous. One afternoon, after class, Daniel asked Michael to stay for a few minutes. There were no direct questions. He simply commented on a book they were reading, mentioned a passage about injustice and difficult choices. Michael listened in silence, his gaze distant. When Daniel finally spoke about Thomas, it was not with pity, nor with ready-made phrases. He simply said that he had known men who were too principled for imperfect systems. The sentence hung in the air. Michael looked up for the first time. The conversation was not long. Michael said little, but something had opened. Not a solution, but a crack. In the days that followed, Daniel began to include Michael in subtle ways. He suggested extra readings. He asked questions that did not demand immediate answers. He did not try to fix him. He simply offered presence and structure. In one of those moments, Daniel said something that left a deep mark on Michael. Anger without direction ends up destroying the person who carries it before it ever reaches the one who caused it. Michael did not agree, but he did not reject the idea either. For the first time since his father's death, someone spoke to him as if there was still a possible future, not as a victim to be protected. Daniel did not replace Thomas. He did not try to. He occupied a different place, that of someone who saw potential even in the midst of chaos, someone who offered boundaries when everything seemed to be collapsing. Even so, Michael was not ready to change. The anger was still there, alive, but now there was something new, someone outside the family who noticed his dissent and refused to ignore it. It was little, but at that moment, little was already enough to keep Michael from sinking completely. What surprised Michael most was not the fact that Professor Daniel had noticed him. It was the fact that he stayed. In the week following their conversation, Daniel did not change his approach, did not exaggerate his attention, nor did he turn Michael into a project. He simply remained there, observing, listening, making space. And for someone who had learned that figures of authority disappeared precisely when they were most needed, that was something new. The help did not come in the form of long speeches. It came through small interventions, a comment after class, a borrowed book with a sentence underlined, a question asked at just the right moment, one Michael could not ignore afterward. Daniel seemed to understand something Michael could not yet name. He did not need to be fixed. He needed to be challenged with care. Little by little, their conversations moved beyond school alone. They began to touch on choices, on responsibility, on patterns Michael was repeating without realizing it. Daniel never spoke about Michael's father directly, but he respected the weight of that unjust absence. He did not try to soften it, nor did he offer cheap consolation. "Some wounds don't close quickly," he said once, "but they don't have to decide who you will be." That sentence marked Michael more deeply than he would admit. Until then, his decisions had been reactions, reacting to loss, reacting to anger, reacting to the constant sense of injustice. Daniel did not stop him from feeling any of that. He simply led him to notice what came after the feeling. It was during that period that Michael began to realize something uncomfortable. Remaining trapped in anger was also a choice, even if unconscious, even if understandable. And choosing differently did not mean forgetting what had happened. It meant accepting the risk of living without using the tragedy as his only compass. Daniel did not pressure him. He did not say, "Do this" or "be this way," but he always returned the responsibility to him. "What are you going to do with this now?" he would ask. those questions began to echo beyond the classroom, in small decisions, in attitudes that would once have gone unnoticed. Michael began to realize that growing up was not an event, but a silent process full of discomfort and uncertainty. Nothing was resolved. The pain remained. The anger was still there. But for the first time since his father's loss, Michael felt that someone was walking beside him, not to carry him, but to ensure that he would not lose himself. And without realizing it, he was beginning to take the first steps toward choices that later on would define who he would become. The change in Michael was not immediately visible to others, but it began to exact its toll within him. There were situations in which reacting as he had before would have been easier, faster, more familiar. Ignoring, provoking, running away. And for a while, Michael still did that. Habits do not disappear simply because someone points out a different path. But now, every reaction came with an uncomfortable question, the same one Daniel insisted on returning to him. What are you choosing right now? That question arose with force when Michael found himself facing a conflict that months earlier he would have resolved through confrontation. An older classmate provoked him, knowing exactly where to strike: his father, the absence, the wound that had never properly healed. The anger came as it always had, raw, immediate. For a few seconds, Michael felt his entire body pulled toward the old path, but something held him back. Not fear of punishment, not obedience, but the clear awareness that such a reaction would push him back to a place he was slowly beginning to leave. He did not respond, not because he was strong, but because he was tired of being predictable. The silence came at a cost. The provocation did not stop immediately. Others laughed, and Michael left that situation with the strange feeling that he had lost, and, at the same time, not. That day, Michael sought out Daniel without knowing exactly what to say. He was not proud. He was not at peace. He was confused. "I wanted to react," he admitted. "I still do." Daniel did not try to deny it. Growth doesn't erase desire. It only changes what you do with it. The conversation did not end with a clear lesson, nor with a definitive answer, but something important was established. Growing up also hurts, and often it hurts more than staying the same. Michael began to realize that choosing differently meant at times walking alone. He would not always be understood. He would not always be validated. Inner change did not come with external applause. Even so, something within him was strengthening quietly. It was not confidence, it was direction. For the first time since his father's loss, Michael felt that the future was not entirely hijacked by the past, not because the pain had gone away, but because it no longer commanded every decision. The path ahead was still long. There would be mistakes, relapses, moments of doubt. But that chapter marked something essential. Michael had learned that every true choice exacts a price, and that paying that price is part of growing up. Time passed, not in a dramatic way, nor marked by major events defining each year. It passed as it usually does for those who keep living. Days that accumulate, small decisions, repeated mistakes with less intensity, almost imperceptible successes. Michael grew up. The anger still existed, but it was no longer the center of everything. It occupied a smaller, more controlled space, something he could recognize before acting. The impulsive teenager had become a more attentive young man, still imperfect, but less dominated by his impulses. It was during this period that he met Kate. It was not a cinematic encounter. It was simple, a common setting, a conversation without pretense. What caught Michael's attention was not immediate beauty or impressive words, but the way she listened. Kate had a calm presence. She did not invade, did not pressure, did not try to fix anyone. She was firm without being harsh, kind without being naive. Kate had something rare, coherence. What she said was supported by what she did. She did not need to win arguments because she did not turn everything into a dispute. And perhaps without realizing it, she demanded the best from people simply by existing the way she did. The relationship began slowly. Michael did not open up right away. There were parts of him that still distrusted calmness, as if tranquility were only a pause before another loss. Kate noticed this, and instead of forcing closeness, she respected his timing. She did not romanticize wounds. She did not treat pain as identity. When Michael spoke about his father, she listened. When he fell silent, she did not demand explanations. But Kate was not passive either. At specific moments, when Michael reacted harshly, she did not accuse him, she questioned him with simple, direct sentences, hard to ignore. Is that what you're feeling, or just what you learn to do when you feel that way? Those questions unsettled him more than any confrontation, because they did not come loaded with judgment, but with expectation. Kate believed Michael could be better, and she made that clear, without pressure, without the threat of abandonment. By her side, Michael began to realize something new. Growing up was not only about resisting anger, but about learning to choose care. Care for others, care for himself. Kate did not replace mentors. She did not take his father's place. She did not erase the past. But she became an essential part of Michael's evolution because she walked beside him, not ahead, not behind. With her, he began to understand that maturity is not the absence of pain, it is responsibility for what one does with it. And for the first time, Michael did not feel that he had to fight the entire world in order to move forward. He did not yet know it, but life was preparing the next test, a greater one, one that would bring face to face everything he had lost and everything he was building. Time did not pass all at once. It accumulated. Michael noticed this in simple details, in the weight of responsibilities he now carried without complaint, in the way people waited for his opinion before making decisions, in the respectful silence that formed when he entered a room. None of this happened suddenly. It was the result of years, of right choices mixed with mistakes, of quiet falls, of persistence without an audience. At 38, he occupied a place the 14-year-old boy he once was could never have imagined. Professional stability, recognition, a routine built through effort and discipline. He had reached where many claimed they wanted to be, and yet he felt no triumph. What he felt was something more restrained, responsibility. Kate was part of that balance, not as loud support, but as a firm and constant presence. There was a rare serenity in her, the ability to listen before judging, to question without wounding, to see the best in people without being naive. With her, Michael learned that maturity is not about hardening, but about sustaining principles even when it would be easier to abandon them. The life they built together was simple yet solid. Long conversations at the end of the day, comfortable silences, mutual respect. Kate did not erase Michael's past. She understood it, and that made all the difference. At work, he dealt directly with decisions that affected other people, evaluations, approvals, consequences. For the first time, he stood close to the kind of authority that many years earlier had changed his life forever. And that proximity, though silent, was never neutral. At times, while signing a document or ending a meeting, Michael felt a familiar weight in his chest. It was not fear, it was memory. It did not come as clear images, but as sensations, a tight throat, heightened attention to words, and excessive care when judging someone. He did not speak about it. He did not need to. That old pain had become part of his internal code. Daniel, the teacher who once saw him when few did, still appeared in Michael's thoughts from time to time, especially when he questioned whether he was being fair. It was Daniel who had taught him, while he was still young, that authority without conscience is nothing more than misdirected force. A simple lesson, yet profound, which Michael carried quietly. From the outside, everything seemed resolved. He had grown, evolved, overcome. But the truth was more subtle. The wound no longer bled, yet it was still there, healed, sensitive, silent. Michael did not know it yet, but the position he had earned would not be only an achievement, it would be a test. And the past, patient as ever, waited for the right moment to return, not as memory, but as a choice.
The situation reached Michael discreetly, as almost all injustices do. There was no uproar, no collective outrage, just one report among many, an administrative decision already set in motion, treated as necessary and inevitable. A young employee had been held responsible for a mistake he had not committed alone, perhaps had not even committed at all. The process had been too fast, the justifications generic, the tone of the assessment cold. As Michael read through the documents, he felt something old stir inside him, like a mechanism that had never truly stopped existing. The words were different, but the logic was the same. Authority had to be preserved, the institution protected, an individual expendable. He closed the file for a moment, not out of technical doubt, but because of something deeper. The sensation was physical, a tightness in his chest, a discomfort difficult to explain. It was not immediate compassion, it was recognition. Michael had seen this before. Not in a corporate environment, but years earlier, on a different scale, with different consequences. The image of the young man facing the decision blended involuntarily with the memory of his own father being reduced to a number in a process that never considered his humanity. What disturbed him most was not the error itself, but how naturally everyone around accepted it. Conversations in the hallways went on as usual. Meetings continued. The institutional machine felt nothing as it crushed someone. Over dinner, Michael mentioned the case to Kate. He did not go into technical details. He spoke little. Still, she noticed. She always did. "This affected you," she said carefully. He confirmed it with a brief nod. There was no need to explain everything. Kate did not try to fix what was not hers to fix. She simply asked the right question at the right moment. "Sometimes," she continued, "what hurts most isn't the mistake, but the silence around it." Michael did not answer. That sentence settled too deeply for an immediate response. That night, sleep took a long time to come, not because of anxiety, but because of memory. Not a clear, organized recollection, but fragments, closed doors, voices too firm, decisions made without room for reply. He realized with discomfort that the past did not return to demand pain, it returned to demand a position. The report was still open, the decision technically correct in the eyes of many. The choice now was his. The opportunity to act presented itself with an almost unsettling clarity. Michael did not need to dig for information or force any paths. All it would take was a discreet move, a formal review of the process, a well-placed question raised at the right level. He had backing, a track record, authority. If he wanted to, he could dismantle the entire decision with the same cold precision with which it had been constructed. And there was something more. He could go beyond what was necessary.
He could publicly expose the person directly responsible. He could turn the mistake into an example. He could return to the institution the embarrassment it had so often avoided at the expense of individuals. All of this would be seen by many as justice, perhaps even as courage. That was the temptation. Not the temptation to correct the injustice, that was legitimate, but the temptation to use the correction as an instrument of revenge. Michael recognized the feeling without disguise. It existed. It was old, fed by years of silence, by a loss that had never found real reparation. The image of his father, unjustly reduced to a process, did not appear as a clear memory, but as a constant presence, almost demanding. Now you can. That was what the thought said. That night he walked more than usual. The cold air helped organize what his mind insisted on confusing. It was not easy to accept that even after everything, the desire to hurt was still there, not as an uncontrolled impulse, but as something rationalized, justifiable, outwardly clean. When he arrived home, he found Kate sitting and reading. She looked up and, once again, did not ask what had happened. She asked who he was trying to be. Michael spoke, for the first time, without filters, not only about the case, but about what it had awakened, the old anger, the desire to punish beyond what was fair, the fear of recognizing himself in that desire. Kate listened in silence. When she spoke, it was with calm firmness. "You have the right to feel this," she said, "but you do not have the obligation to obey it." She did not ask him to be lenient, nor to forgive. She simply reminded him of something essential. Decisions made to relieve pain rarely build something that lasts. Michael then understood the true weight of the choice. It was not between acting or not acting. It was between who he would become by acting. He knew what needed to be done, but he still did not know whether he was ready to do it the right way. The temptation had not passed. It was merely waiting for the answer that would define the man he had become or the man he still needed to be. The room was far too quiet for the weight of what was about to be decided there. Michael listened to every argument with careful attention. He did not interrupt. He showed no urgency. On the surface, it looked like just another technical meeting. Inside, every word was being weighed against something far older than any formal procedure. When it was time for him to speak, he did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Michael laid out the facts with precision. He pointed out flaws in the process, inconsistencies in the investigation, omissions that had been treated as irrelevant. He did not attack people. He challenged decisions. He separated error from character, responsibility from humiliation. There was resistance. There always is. Some tried to minimize the issue. Others appealed to the need to protect the institution. Michael heard that phrase again, the same logic that had once justified the injustice done to his father. This time, however, it did not go unanswered. Institutions are not sustained by sacrificing people, he said with controlled firmness. They are sustained when they are capable of correcting themselves. The atmosphere shifted. There was no applause, there was discomfort, and that was a good sign. The final decision was balanced, perhaps even too restrained for those who expected an act of revenge. The young man who had been wronged had his case reviewed, his responsibility reassessed, his dignity preserved. The institutional error was acknowledged, albeit cautiously. There were no spectacles, no exemplary punishments beyond what was necessary. Michael could have gone further, and he chose not to. As he left the room, he felt something different from the immediate relief he had imagined. It was not satisfaction. It was stillness, a rare kind of inner quiet, as if something had finally fallen into place. Later, when he told Kate about the decision, she did not smile right away. She simply watched him for a few seconds as someone who recognizes something important without needing to name it. "You chose not to repeat the story," she said. Michael nodded. For the first time, he understood that justice does not erase the past, but it prevents it from multiplying. That night, when he thought of his father, he did not feel anger. He felt respect, not for the injustice his father suffered, but for the man Michael had become, without denying the pain that had shaped him. The choice had been made, and with it, the cycle that began with loss finally found a dignified ending, not perfect, but honorable.
The consequences did not arrive with noise. They came in small, almost imperceptible shifts, an invitation that never came, a more cautious tone in certain conversations, a polite distance where familiarity once existed. Michael recognized the signs with clarity. He knew that acting with integrity rarely produces unanimity. Some now saw him as unpredictable, others as excessively strict. There were also those who respected him in silence, without the courage to say so. Michael did not try to correct any of these interpretations. Over the years, he had learned that how we are perceived says more about the observer than about the one who acts. At work, his position remained the same, his role intact, but something in the environment had changed. Decisions were now discussed more carefully. Processes were reviewed with greater attention, not because of him alone, but because his choice had established an invisible boundary, a line everyone now knew existed. That was the cost of honor, not isolation, but constant scrutiny. At home, Kate noticed the weight he carried even when he said nothing. She did not try to ease it, nor did she turn the decision into a moral victory. She simply stayed. Sometimes she sat beside him in silence. Other times she asked simple questions that brought him back to the present. She understood that some choices must be sustained, not celebrated. Michael reflected on his father more often during that period, not with sharp sadness, but with a new clarity. For the first time, he was able to separate the man from the injustice that had struck him. He realized that honoring him did not mean correcting the past, but preventing the same kind of violence from continuing under his watch. There were moments of doubt. There always are. He questioned whether he had gone too far or not far enough, whether he had lost invisible opportunities, whether the peace he felt was only temporary. Still, something within him remained steady. It was not pride, it was coherence. Michael understood then that honor is not the absence of cost, it is the willingness to pay the right price. And by accepting that weight without resentment, he confirmed something that neither the wounded boy nor the man in formation had managed before. His story was no longer defined by what had been taken from him, but by what he chose not to take from anyone else. Michael realized that some stories do not end with answers, but with understanding. Time kept moving forward, as it always does. Work continued. Life with Kate deepened through simple details, shared plans, everyday choices, the construction of something that did not need to be proven to anyone. He no longer carried urgency, he carried direction. One night, while walking alone, he thought of his father with a serenity that once seemed impossible. The constant weight of resentment was gone, as was the fantasy of delayed justice. What remained was recognition. He now understood that the loss had pushed him onto a path he never would have chosen, yet one he decided to walk with dignity. Michael understood that his father's greatest legacy was not the absence left by injustice, but the silent call to conscience, a call that only revealed itself fully when he himself had the power to harm and chose not to.
Daniel, the teacher, who once saw him in the midst of chaos, appeared in his memory as proof that no one moves through life alone. Kate, by his side, was the daily confirmation that growing up does not mean hardening, but learning to love with responsibility. He did not see himself as a perfect man. He never had. There were still restrained desires, impulses that required vigilance, memories that sometimes returned without warning. But now there was something greater than all of that: awareness. Michael had learned that justice is not refined revenge, that honor is not the absence of flaws, and that true overcoming does not erase the past, it transforms it into criterion. In the end, it was not the world that changed completely, it was him. And that was enough. Because some stories do not need grand endings. They only need to leave something that remains in the reader, in the listener, and in those who choose to be different when their time comes. Final reflection. Not all pain comes to destroy us. Some arrives to teach us who we will become when we finally have a choice. At some point, life places all of us before the same test: to repeat what wounded us or to act differently. The past does not ask for revenge. It asks for awareness. It asks that we do not use the power we have gained to return to the world the same injustice that once marked us. Growing is not about erasing wounds. It is about learning to live with them without allowing them to rule us. It is understanding that character is revealed when no one is stopping us from doing what is wrong, only when we choose not to do it. Michael reminds us that true victory is not over others, but over what could turn us into smaller versions of ourselves, and that in the end, what truly remains is not what was taken from us, but what we choose to preserve. That is the difference between carrying a story and honoring it.
If you enjoy stories that touch the heart, provoke reflection, and stay with you even after the video ends, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach more people. If this video resonated with you, like it and share it with someone who might need to hear this story. See you next time.